Before we begin, a warning. Viewer discretion is advised. What you're about to see was meant to be simple entertainment. Instead, it became one of the most explosive moments in late-night television history. It was supposed to be routine. A guest, a host, a theater filled with laughter. The Ed Sullivan Theater buzzed with its usual electricity. Ticket holders clutching their seats like golden passes. The band running through its last notes. Producers whispering into headsets. Cameras sliding into place. Everything pointed toward another easy win for Stephen Colbert. And then came the guest, Denzel Washington. Academy Award winner, director, Hollywood royalty. He walked in with quiet authority, that signature calm smile, shaking hands as the crowd roared. To many, this was the reason they came. To watch one of the greatest actors alive spar playfully with one of television's sharpest wits. On the surface, it was perfect. Colbert, the liberal satirist always ready with a clever jab. Denzel, the dignified veteran, grounded in faith, discipline, and an unshakable moral compass. Two men, two value systems, a collision waiting to happen. But in that moment, no one saw it coming. The crowd expected jokes, banter, a little promotion for Denzel's latest film. What they got instead was the unraveling of an interview, the breakdown of a host, and a guest who would ultimately rise from his chair and walk away with dignity intact. The lights dimmed. The theme music hit. Colbert launched into a monologue, sharp, polished, loaded with political barbs that earned easy laughs. The audience clapped, oblivious that the real fireworks were only minutes away. This wasn't just entertainment. This became a reckoning. Denzel wasn't there to spar or debate. He was there for one reason, to promote his new directorial project, a drama about redemption and second chances, a story close to his heart. For him, it was just another stop on a long press tour. Smile, answer a few questions, drop the release date, move on. But behind the curtain, a different script had been written. Sources later revealed that Colbert's team had spent the afternoon drafting pointed, even confrontational questions. Not about art, not about storytelling, about faith, about values, about politics. The goal was simple. Provoke a viral moment. At first, everything looked normal. The thunderous applause, the warm handshake, the laughter when Colbert teased Denzel about his legendary work ethic. But then the shift came. So, Denzel, Colbert began, his smile thin. This new film is about forgiveness and redemption. Given your faith background, I'm curious. How much of your personal belief shaped this story? It was a fair question. Denzel leaned forward, voice steady, thoughtful. Faith, in whatever form, gives us a framework for forgiveness. My character made serious mistakes, but he's trying to find his way back. That to me is universal. The audience murmured approval. A grounded, measured answer. Exactly what they expected. But Colbert wasn't satisfied. He leaned in, eyes sharper now. Right, but don't you think there's an irony when Hollywood actors, people who live in a world of fantasy, start lecturing audiences about moral values? The mood shifted. Denzel's smile faltered just barely, but enough for those watching closely to notice. From the wings, his publicist tensed, sensing the change in tone. I wouldn't call it lecturing, Denzel replied, calm but firm. When you're given a platform, you have a responsibility to be authentic about who you are. I don't preach to anyone, but I won't hide my beliefs either. It was steady, respectful, enough to satisfy most hosts, but not Colbert. He pressed harder. What about the issues your faith community cares about? Marriage equality, women's rights, religion in government. You've been pretty quiet there, haven't you? The air thickened. Audience members shifted in their seats, sensing the pivot from conversation to interrogation. Denzel didn't break. His jaw tightened, but his voice was even. My faith teaches me to love, not to judge. I talk about dignity, about hard work, about family. I'm not a politician. I'm an actor telling stories. Dignified, authentic. but not the viral moment Colbert was chasing. So he pushed again. His body leaned forward over the desk, no longer a host but a cross-examiner. "Let's get specific," he said, pausing long enough for the silence to crawl. "You've been very open about your Christian faith. Fine. But where do you stand on marriage equality? Women's reproductive rights? The role of religion in government? Don't people deserve clarity?" The words landed like an ambush. The laughter was gone. The room sat heavy with expectation. Denzel didn't flinch. His posture was steady, his tone deliberate. "My faith teaches me to love, Stephen, not to judge. When I talk about values, I'm talking about dignity, working hard, caring for family, respecting people, even when you disagree. I'm not here to dictate laws. I'm not running for office. I'm here as an actor, a director, a man sharing what guides him." It was measured, grounded, but still not enough for Colbert. "The silence itself is a position, isn't it?" the host snapped. "You can't claim the moral authority of faith while staying neutral on the moral issues of our time. That's having it both ways." A murmur rippled through the audience. Half gasp, half shuffle of unease. What they were watching no longer felt like entertainment. It felt like a trial. Backstage, Denzel's publicist hovered a hand over her phone, already bracing for fallout. She knew this wasn't the interview they'd been promised. Denzel's jaw tightened, the first visible crack in his calm exterior, but his voice remained even. "You're asking me to fit my relationship with God into your political categories. That's not what faith is. My responsibility isn't to endorse one side or the other. It's to live authentically and let the work I do, on and off screen, speak for itself." The room went silent. No applause, no laughter, just the weight of his words. The contrast was now undeniable. Colbert, performing confrontation, pushing, prodding, straining for a headline. Denzel embodying composure, anchored, grounded, unwilling to be dragged into political theater. And then Colbert crossed the line. "So you're saying staying neutral on civil rights is actually respecting people? Is that your position?" His tone was sharp, almost gleeful, daring Denzel to stumble. And in that instant, the smile that had carried Washington through decades of Hollywood interviews vanished. The warmth was gone. In its place, steel. The transformation was unmistakable. Colbert had gone one question too far, and the duel that followed would leave the theater in stunned silence. The Ed Sullivan Theater felt heavier now, every breath taut with tension. The easy rhythm of late-night television had collapsed. Colbert's grin had disappeared, his voice cut like a blade. "Come on, Denzel. You can't have it both ways. You can't sit here and talk about faith, values, redemption, and then dodge the issues that actually matter." "Isn't that avoiding moral responsibility?" Colbert pressed. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. For the first time that evening, Denzel shifted in his chair, not out of discomfort but out of resolve. His eyes locked on Colbert, calm but edged with steel. "Are you interviewing me about my film, Stephen?" he asked evenly. "Or are you just trying to score points?" The line cracked through the theater like a thunderclap. A nervous laugh rippled through the crowd, the uncertain sound of people unsure whether it was safe to react. Some clapped, hesitant. Others sat frozen. The balance of power had shifted. Colbert, momentarily caught off guard, doubled down. His tone was suddenly defensive. "I'm trying to have an honest conversation. You've got influence, a platform. When you invoke faith, you step into the public square. And silence on issues like equality or women's rights." He leaned forward. "That's not neutrality. That's complicity." The word stung. Complicity. It framed Denzel not as a guest, but as a defendant. Washington leaned forward now, his voice low but carrying. "Complicity," he repeated. "Complicity is forcing people into boxes so you can score a headline. My work speaks for itself. My values speak for themselves. I don't need to be a pawn in your political theater." Scattered applause broke out, hesitant at first but real, enough to reveal that parts of the audience saw the imbalance for what it was. Colbert's composure slipped. He gestured with his cards, his words tumbling out faster, hotter. You can't come on a national stage, talk about redemption and second chances, and not be asked what that means in real life. This isn't a puff piece, Denzel. This is accountability. Washington's jaw tightened. His voice, however, stayed calm, measured. Accountability isn't ambushing a guest under false pretenses. It isn't twisting faith into a weapon. Accountability is respect, even when you disagree. This time the applause was sharper, stronger. Colbert tried to speak over it, but the sound drowned him out. For a moment the stage belonged to Denzel, and that was the danger of the tactic. Colbert had leaned into what media critics call host cornering, forcing a guest into a yes or no trap, hoping any answer could be spun into a viral clip. Sometimes it works, but when the guest refuses to play, the host risks looking less like a truth-teller and more like a bully. That risk was now playing out in real time. Colbert's tone sharpened, his rhythm faltered. He pressed again, almost pleading. You can't expect to sit here, present yourself as a moral voice, and then stay silent on the biggest issues of our time. Now Washington cut him clean. I don't present myself as a moral voice, Stephen. I'm not running for office. I'm not writing policy. I'm an actor, a director, a man of faith. What I share is my experience, not your political script. The crowd erupted in uneven claps, some roaring in approval, others still frozen in silence, watching what no longer felt like an interview, but a duel. Backstage, Washington's publicist stood at the very edge of the curtain, face tense, ready to step in if the exchange spiraled. In the control room, producers exchanged frantic looks. This wasn't what had been planned, but no one dared call for a cut. On stage, two men stared each other down, one grasping for control, the other unshaken in calm defiance. And then, Colbert snapped. You're being a coward, Denzel. Gasps rippled through the audience. The word was too sharp, too loaded, too personal. It wasn't a question anymore. It was an insult. Live on air. Denzel's eyes narrowed. The warmth was gone. His calm hardened into steel. He leaned forward, his voice slicing through the stunned silence. Cowardice? He said slowly, each syllable deliberate. Is hiding behind comedy when what you really want to do is attack someone. The words landed like a strike. The crowd froze, suspended between awe and disbelief. They had come for late-night laughs. What they were witnessing was something else entirely. Instead, they were watching a reckoning. A comedy show had turned courtroom, the stage a tribunal, and the verdict was already written across the faces in the crowd. Colbert sat stiff at his desk, cards trembling like loose leaves in a storm. The grin he tried to muster cracked under the weight of the silence pressing in on him. And Washington's words, a hit job with better lighting, still hung in the rafters like a sentence no one could commute. The control room scrambled, voices colliding in chaos. Cut away now! No, stay on him, this is history. Every camera lens locked on Colbert, his every fidget magnified, his every pause exposed. For once, there was no punchline to rescue him. The audience shifted uneasily, some clapping in solidarity with Washington's stand, others frozen, unsure whether they were complicit just by watching. It was the kind of tension that doesn't evaporate. It seeps in, clings, lingers. Washington was already gone, his shadow swallowed by the wings. But his absence was louder than his presence. It was the kind of exit that doesn't end when the door closes. It echoes, reminding everyone who stayed behind that they had witnessed something irreversible. Colbert shuffled his cards again, then dropped them. They scattered across the desk like fragments of a script no one believed in anymore. He laughed nervously, but it wasn't comedy. It was survival. Well, he stammered, voice thin as paper. We'll be right back. But they wouldn't be. Not really. Because late night thrives on illusion, on the dance between guest and host, conflict wrapped in charm, seriousness softened by jokes. Tonight, that dance ended. The illusion cracked. and in its place stood something raw, unstageable, undeniable. The cameras faded to black, but the damage was permanent. The show hadn't just lost control. It had lost faith. Washington exited with dignity. Kohler sat with cards trembling in his hand, the audience caught in between, left with the uneasy feeling that they had witnessed something they were never meant to see. But the drama didn't end with the walkout. It was only beginning, because the real battle was about to erupt outside the studio walls. The fallout was immediate. Within minutes of Washington's exit, clips of the confrontation exploded across social media. The hashtag #DenzelWalksOut rocketed to the top of global trends. Millions watched the 30-second clash on their phones before the broadcast had even finished airing. The internet was merciless. Memes flooded Twitter and TikTok, painting Washington as a stoic truth-teller and Kohler as a desperate provocateur. Headlines followed within hours. Washington walks. Colbert crumbles. Faith versus fury. Late night's most explosive clash. By morning, the consequences were measurable. Overnight ratings for Kohler's show plummeted, the steepest decline since his debut. Advertisers called the network in a panic, worried about being linked to a segment branded online as a hit job. Critics went further, accusing Kohler of crossing the line from satire into ambush. And Washington? He said almost nothing. Outside a Manhattan hotel, a reporter shouted a question about the controversy. Washington's reply was calm, measured. "I wish Mr. Kohler well." That was it. No rant, no escalation, no victory lap. Just dignity. The contrast was striking. On one side, a host unraveling under pressure, his judgment and ethics questioned. On the other, a guest who walked away not just intact, but elevated. The price of outrage was clear. For Kohler, it was credibility and control. For Washington, it was a moment of clarity. A reminder that sometimes the strongest statement is silence. But silence can be louder than words, and the world had already drawn its judgment. The walkout became more than a headline. It became a case study. Media schools dissected it. Commentators debated it. Audiences remembered it as the late-night comedy collided with hard truth. In the final reckoning, 2 images remained. Kohler, visibly shaken, fumbling to recover as the illusion of control slipped through his hands, and Washington leaving the stage with composure, turning a hostile ambush into a masterclass in restraint. The lessons were unavoidable. In the world of talk shows, confrontation can spark ratings, but without respect, it destroys trust. Hosts may chase viral moments, but guests who embody authenticity always walk away with the audience's respect. Washington didn't need to shout. He didn't need to win a debate. He simply refused to surrender his dignity. And in doing so, he reminded viewers of a truth bigger than any headline. Real power lies not in spectacle, but in self-control. The verdict was written not by critics, but by the silence of that studio and the roar of the internet afterward. One man left with integrity. The other was left alone on his stage.